his presentation about this man who's the God of hope, and I needed hope. And I said, okay, I literally ran Colin to the front, and I said, I need hope.
Well, we often spend time talking about foreign missions on Missions Today, and there are so many places of the world to cover and so many different organizations to talk about. We don't spend near as much time on domestic missions, and that's what we're going to do today. We want to focus on what people are doing in the United States as well as what people are doing around the world as God has called them to minister to people and to share the good news. And we're excited today to have Dr. Jenifer Wakefield with us. She is the director of Restoration Ranch, Texas. And that's not too far from me. As you know, I'm based here in Austin, Texas, and we're thrilled to have her on the program here today. Dr. Wakefield, thanks for your time today. Welcome to Missions Today. Tell us a little bit about Restoration Ranch, Texas.
Thank you, Colin, so much for this opportunity to share, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Restoration Ranch, Texas was an idea born from an idea from prayer. And I was on staff at the time, church staff at Great Hills Baptist Church, still my home church, and was faced with what to do and how to help individuals, women particularly, specifically, that were coming into the church and into my office. And the typical response or the typical reaction was, here's a list of resources in Austin. There is, other than just the temporary domestic violence shelters and food pantries and social services that were, long waiting lists, there was nothing for women, Christ-centered resources for women, and also considering their families that I could go to or I could refer our pastors to. So I began to pray. I began to pray hard. Lord, how can we help these people inside the church walls, outside the church walls that were coming across privately across our path? And he gave me a scripture in Psalms, and I wrote it down and gave me an idea, a visual idea of what that looked like. And that was in 2012. And so that hung on, and I prayed over it, cooked it in the prayer crock pot, whatever you want to say, just privately, shared it with some individuals that I felt like were wise and cared about ministry to families and people in crisis. And in 2016, we put it on paper. And so we formed legally, wrote the bylaws, wrote the bones, the skeleton of the actual ministry. And it was another 2 years before we actually formed a board. So 2018, we formed our board, got serious people, involved and like-minded people involved, and it came to life. And so from 2018 on, it has been an active, legal, tax exempt 501c3 in the Austin area.
We're going to come back to Restoration Ranch in just a moment because there's so much to talk about what you do to help these women in crisis. And I know, and we'll get to this in a little bit, there are just there's such a limited number of beds, such a limited number of housing for women in these situations. And that is one of the key issues we're dealing with in our culture today. And you have found a way with your organization to help rectify at least some of that. And we're going to talk about that more in just a moment. But I want to talk about your story, because your story really, to me, in some ways, is tied to where you are today with Restoration Ranch. I mean, you come from what some might consider a very challenging background. Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up years and how you came to find Jesus, or how Jesus came to find you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, that is so true. Jesus found me. Jesus revealed himself to me when, and I still don't understand it as a grown woman, as one still pursuing understanding how God works, in a very hostile environment towards God, religion, the church, in every way. That was the understanding that I had, but yet I knew there was a God, and was very, very okay with that in my childhood. Got to Texas as fast as I could. I say I wasn't born here, but I got here as fast as I could from Kansas. And by the time we got to Kansas in the early 70s, my family was already very fractured, falling apart. The move to Texas was an opportunity for my mother to attend University of Texas at Austin, which was something she wanted to do. And it was from that point forward that the family just further fell apart. I have two siblings, and the time in our family, the time that we were actually together as a family under one roof, was very limited, maybe until I was 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, and my siblings as well, even some of them younger. But it was very abusive, very horrific, and there were times when we would all just leave and be on the streets, because we would rather take our chances on the street as opposed to be in the house. By the time we got to Texas, like I said, the family was fractured. I wound up on the streets of Austin at the age of 10, and got picked up and put in juvie because of I was stealing food. And that incident actually led the judge, to call Charles Wright at Texas Baptist Children's Home in Round Rock. And he said, that's back when they did things like that. You pick up the phone and you call somebody you know. And I like that model, and that's something that I do myself. And so he said, we've got some room, bring her. And so my mom said she didn't want me, and I went out there and spent the rest of my growing up years. And so I did. At that time, I had safety, I had security. It wasn't easy, but I did hear about the gospel at Highland Lakes Baptist Encampment from our chaplain, who was leading the camp at that time, for that period of time. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember it like it was an hour ago, how the Lord called me to himself. And I was without hope. And based on what I had been through, and already 3 years at the children's home, I was without hope. And I wanted to die. I was planning my suicide. But I remember that call that night. It was a stormy night, not unlike what we had recently here in Austin. But I was fixated on him and his presentation about this man who's the God of hope. And I needed hope. And I said, okay, I literally ran, Colin, to the front. And I said, I need hope. And I remember saying yes to Jesus at that time, and I've never doubted it since. And from that time forward, one of the vacancies in my life was discipleship. And I realize that now as an adult, looking back on all the ways that I stumbled and fell and had a hard time. But I did finish my years at the children's home, and had some difficult times, but came back around. Their aftercare program helped me get back on track. And I'd never considered college, but they said, hey, why don't you try college? And I said, okay, I'll give Howard Payne a try. And they were fun. And so I went there for a while. And but since that time, I met my husband when I was on an actual resident there at the children's home. And I was 16, and he was just fresh on staff, and nothing happened. But we kept in touch, and we later married after some time at me being at Howard Payne, and I moved to the other side of the campus, and we started our life together and our family, and we were there 18 years together as a team, and him being the director. And we've still continued to have we have a foster daughter that we were foster parents. And so we we have a long affinity and relationship and friendship with Texas Baptist Children's Home, very special to us.
Wow, what a story. I mean, here you are now, a doctor who's running Restoration Ranch, Texas, and many people might have looked at you as that 10-year-old girl on the streets looking for food and thought there was no hope as well for somebody like that. What made the difference? What changed that allowed you to be where you are now?
Well, Colin, that is a $64 million question, but for me, the answer is very simple. No one succeeds alone, and I am a product of a good nonprofit, and that's why that's the DNA of who I am. I know a good nonprofit is always a benefit to the community, but also Jesus just didn't let me go, and he gave me so many, you know, I didn't have a biological family that was dependable, but Christ, through his church, that I love, has given me so many people that have stepped in and been a shoulder for me, a prayer warrior for me and my family, and a model for me. Discipleship has been everything through the church, helping me be. I mean, my in-laws were my in-loves, I call them, had the most amazing relationship with my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and their his family and my husband's family, and they taught me. She taught me at the counter cooking. They modeled uh, Christ's love all the time. And so just that collective effort of the local church, discipleship, real people. Now, there've been some, there's been some deceptive people along the way. It's the world we live in, but not getting focused on people, but Christ, and then through his people, his genuine sheep and shepherds have been, man, they've been the glue for me for sure.
I know you spent many years on staff at the church that you mentioned, and you were doing counseling, things like that. You began to see that there were some needs that just as a local church you couldn't handle in the church itself. Talk a bit about that need for something beyond the church and how that led to Restoration Ranch.
Right. Part of our DNA and part of the essence and the beginnings and the genesis of Restoration Ranch is ministry partnership. And we are passionate about partnering with like-minded nonprofits and local churches to come alongside pastors and lay leaders and staff who have they're stretched thin already. I saw in a very genuine, hardworking way missionaries. I mean, we want to come alongside and be a a reliable, trustworthy, Christ-centered resource for the local church. And part of what's missing in what I saw, just as God ordained my educational journey to take place in the last 10 years while I was on staff at Great Hills, is letting them know, these are some things that I'm seeing behind this, not specifics, but just generally, these are some trends, cutting, these are some things I'm seeing. So there's not, first of all, this stigma and this fear to talk about it, but encouraging, I call them the guys, encouraging the guys and the gals on the staff to say, it might be scary to talk about this or enter into this conversation with this family, but this is what I found. These are the statistics I found. This is the research. So this is what God has to say about it. Let's see if we can pray through this and be, kind of be that, I don't know, blaze forward and have this conversation that might be hard within the church.
Let's fast forward to last fall. You got the facility open and going, and you're now engaged full time with the activity there. Let's dig a little more deeply into Restoration Ranch, Texas. What kinds of things do you do? What kinds of services do you provide? What kind of people are you helping?
Okay. Well, the kind of people that we're helping are people that are just like us, just like me. They're needing help. They're needing the best help, which is Christ centered, in my opinion. And we want to interact with those individuals and have constant conversations with people that are having crisis. Now, the nemesis or the beginnings of those crises can come through things that may be hard for churches or ministries, or people that haven't been there before to see or identify. We try to help them identify. It could be domestic violence, it could be substance abuse, it could be depression, suicidal ideations, it could be poverty, or it could be a crime. Many women that we talk to, and some of my our work through Great Hills at a prison, a local prison here, women's prison, many of them have a long history of crime, and it's nonviolent crime, but they're the kind of all of those identifiable behaviors and lifestyles are the things that we are dealing with and working with in individuals. There are solutions. So that's the hope that we can give to people. So those are the people ages 18 and up, biological women. And the I guess the entrance is very simple. We ask them to be a volunteer into a discipleship program, long-term discipleship residential program. They do not have to be Christ followers. They do not have to have religion in their background, but we do ask them to respect the parameters of our program. They may not ever say or want to identify with Christ, the Jesus of the Bible, but we just ask them to come alongside us and do life with us. We have a structured 3-stage program. One builds on the other: foundations, elevation, and then destination. So as each student, and we call them their students, they're not clients, they're not residents, they're students. We want them to have hopefully integrate that teachable attitude into their mind. If you're a student, you're learning. We want you to be teachable, and I know I'm still learning. So we hope that that translates in their willingness to learn a new way and how to communicate, there's a whole curriculum, anywhere from gardening to health, wellness, exercise. We call them electives, things they like to do. Some of them like to cook. Some of them like to, they're interested in building things and creating things. We have a whole list of things that as we customize their care plan, each person will have different things that they want to do. So we counseling, spiritual aspect, educational aspect, and as they progress, hopefully, Colin, if they want to achieve or complete education, get documents, maybe some of them need to get their driver's license again, or some of them may want to go into a trade. We want to help them grow and achieve that, but also lastly, and most importantly, grow spiritually, and also grow and repair and restore relationships, the most important relationships in their life.
Is there a certain time period that these women will be staying in your facility? Is there a set plan, how many months or years they'll be engaged?
We hope, based on some of our conversations with other programs, residential programs, we at least 12 months. If they're fast learners, maybe 9 months. But as soon as we're not going to pressure them one way or the other, I mean, especially on the back end, if they need a little more time in foundations, for example, if they need 8 months in foundations, they may have been coming out of a very difficult, they may have been sex trafficked, they may be coming out of a very emotionally and mentally broken state there. They may need more time in the foundation part. But as they complete and grow, and as we continue to assess, they may move more quickly in stage 2, which is elevation. They're growing higher in the program. So they can stay as long as 24 months. So 12 months to 24 months, depending on each person and how they do.
Well, I know this is a fairly new endeavor. Any stories to share or any reflections on what you've seen so far with the women that you've had join the program?
I have a couple. I have two. One thing that we have heard from, and we also partner with uh, detox and recovery facilities. They call us and they say, you know, we talk through those situations and circumstances. One of the thing that was one conversation was very poignant with a counselor, a caseworker, and she said, "We've gotten her this far, but we don't have what she needs. She needs Christ, and you have that." And that was just like that was just a cool moment where we're like, we'll take that. That's we if they need other stuff too, we'll do that. Great, because we're full, we're comprehensive. We have medical, we have a staff nurse. They may need to work on their physical health. That's great, we'll do that. But that spiritual component, and just from my heart and experience, man, when that's right and that's what they're seeking, boy, that's what true success is. And the other memory or comment or thought is that I love being able to share about what we're doing, because it seems to be different in our area here in Texas, and we've seen God work through that, and just the partnerships with the local church. The pastors I've sat with and leadership I sat with, they have been relieved almost to know when I hand them my phone number, I say, call me anytime. I want to hear your heart. I want to, if I can encourage you, we can encourage you. We also have a training component we offer on our team. Our program director, Holly Summers, she's working on her PhD. And so one of the things that we realize as well is that staff and sometimes volunteer staff or lay leaders, they need training. And so we're willing to go into, sit down in front of a church leadership and just say, how can we help you? How can we help build your discipleship to your ladies or to your families? How can we help you? And I've seen pastors just nod their head and go, wow, this is great. Thank you. I can't think of anything right now, but I'm putting this in my phone. So that's another thing that we've just found to be very, very special.
Final question for you. How can our audience best pray for you and your team?
We believe in prayer. You know, First Thessalonians 5:17 says to pray without ceasing, and we pray often every time we gather. We would pray, ask your prayers for wisdom. And James 1:5 talks about God granting wisdom when you ask. So that's the one thing we ask for most of all. Secondly, we pray for students to come, people that need help, people that just they want to have that time and safety and solace to restore, rebuild their lives. We want them to come. So get in touch with us, call us, find us, have God bring them to us, bring them our way. The third thing would be for churches and organizations to partner with us. We need more partners. We ask you to get involved, whether it's volunteer. Pray for those that have resources and it's easy for them to give, that they'll find us.
Well, it's incredible to hear the pathway. And again, Jenifer, you are at the center of this and the heart of this story, really, with your own story, God bringing you out of a tremendously challenging background, and now you having the opportunity to, in a very similar way to that children's home, to you to be able to minister to women who are facing all kinds of challenges like that now. I mean, what a full circle moment. You must really be pleased at what God has done. As difficult as I know most of it in the early days must have been, to see this full circle moment, it must mean a lot.
It does, and we stand in awe of God and His glory, what He has done. It's something, Colin. I'm not smart enough to think this stuff up. And we just continually are in awe of what he has done. I mean, there are so many stories. We don't have time. We're not going to go there, but thank you. And I, to you and to your organization, it's people like you who bring that encouragement and that hug along the way to help us keep going, because we want people to know about what Christ can do, what only he can do, but that we're his hands and feet. And so come along and let's go on the journey together. We're waiting for you.
Dr. Jenifer Wakefield, the director of Restoration Ranch, Texas. And if you're watching or listening today, we will link you in the program or podcast notes so you can get directly to Restoration Ranch, Texas and learn more about it. Jenifer, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate you.